The Queen's Nose, Chapter 9. Good news, bad news. It was some time since the accident. Immediately after it, had she been conscious, Harmony would surely have felt that the magic of the Queen's nose was black, the work of an evil power. Anita was lost, the icebreaker a twisted wreck, and she herself flung in the gutter like a crumpled doll, the digital watch smashed on her broken wrist. And as well as the wrist, the hospital had had to deal with a fractured thigh, and some busted ribs and a collarbone, not to mention enough cuts and bruises to last a lifetime. At first, everything had seemed like one unending dream of strange voices and strange smells and pain. Sometimes the dream was not so bad, just a hazy muddle of spotted rabbits and shining black puppies, and sometimes it was a nightmare, always the same one. Rolling down a long road towards her came a giant 50-pence piece, a monstrous wheel as high as a house that bore down upon her with a horrid clicking sound as it turned from one of its 7 huge edges to the next. And she could not move, and she knew that the edge which would crush her would be the one at which the enormous Queen's enormous nose pointed, and she would cry out in terror. The first afternoon that Harmony was really back in the world again, when she had fully understood what was happening and where she was, and was becoming used to all the strappings and plaster and the strange contraption that held her legs suspended, all the family was sitting round her bed. Melody had cut short her holiday by a couple of days. Mr. Parker had taken time off from his office. Mrs. Parker had been beside her younger daughter all the while. Harmony looked at them all in turn, and for once she did not see a vain Siamese cat and a pompous sea lion and a fussy pouter pigeon. Instead, she saw 3 worried people looking at her with love. She burst into tears. Suddenly everything seemed all right. "Don't worry, Harm, your rabbit's quite okay. That funny little milkman with the squeaky voice found it in the next door garden, and I'm looking after it, and it's fine. Don't worry, Harmony, we'll get you a new bike and a new watch. Don't worry, darling, I haven't thrown your jeans away this time, just washed them, and I went through the pockets, and that precious old 50-pence piece of yours is safe in your piggy bank." When it was time to leave, Mrs. Parker stayed behind in the ward for a moment after the others had gone. "Try and get a good rest tonight," she said. "Everything's going to be all right." "I'm glad. I've been having awful dreams." "I know. You've been shouting out." "What did I shout?" "It sounded like the Queen knows. But I've no idea what the Queen was supposed to know, and I don't expect you have either." "Mummy?" "Yes, darling?" "What about school?" "Oh, I'm afraid you won't be able to go to school this term." "The Queen knows all right," thought Harmony. "She didn't half fix the 6th wish. I bet if I could pick her out of the piggy bank she'd be grinning all over her face at the thought of a Labrador puppy let loose in here. The 7th wish is going to have to wait a while." Rexruff Monty seemed to enjoy being in hospital. The saddle box had been torn in the accident, but he had been quite unhurt. Mrs. Parker had brought him in, and he was waiting on top of the bedside locker when Harmony first came round. Now, of course, he was on the pillow beside her head, and the ward sister, herself a wire-haired fox terrier, Harmony had noted straight away, had put beside the card over the bed saying Harmony Parker, another which read R. Monty. At drinks time, he was always given a sweet biscuit. It was never wasted. At first, for someone who liked to be mostly by herself, it was worrying to be surrounded by so many people, patients and staff, from whom you could not escape. Harmony got over this by her usual method of turning people into animals. As well as the sister, there was a staff nurse with pop eyes and a very squashy sort of nose. Pug. A night nurse with very large spectacles who moved softly about the darkened ward, her uniform seeming to change colour as she moved in and out of little pools of light. a chameleon of course, and a pair of probationers who flitted about at high speed, chattering away non-stop at the patients and each other. Budgerigars. There were two doctors whom she saw often. One she imagined was rather important, for the wire-haired fox terrier and the pug came rushing to his side whenever he appeared, but he didn't act importantly. He was quiet and small and sandy and quick, so he had to be a ferret. The other one was younger, with red hair and a loud voice. He was a howler monkey. And of course, on either side of Harmony and all around the children's ward were a host of little animals who had damaged their wings or their hooves or their beaks from falling out of trees or into holes or running across roads without looking, so that she was able to fill a whole new sketching book with her own particular kind of drawings while she lay and mended. At last the day came when she had progressed from wheelchair to crutches to sticks, on which the ferret said that she might go home. And what a day that was! There were fish fingers and baked beans and chips and tomato sauce for lunch. As the pouter pigeon fussed over her, the Siamese positively purred as she showed her how well and sleek and happy Anita was. And in the evening, when the sea lion came back from doing his tricks in the city, he helped her out to the garage, and there was the icebreaker, its dark blue paint shining, its chromium gleaming, its white-walled tyres spotless. There you go, you can see it there. It looks as though it's never even been ridden, said Harmony slowly. The sea lion barked with amusement. It hasn't, he said. That's what comes of being a celebrity. When the manager of the bicycle shop heard that it was you who'd been involved in an accident and that famous 10,000th model had been smashed, he thought he'd help himself to another nice slice of publicity. He persuaded the manufacturers to give you a new icebreaker. They'll be round to take your picture any day again now. You must be the only girl in the world who's ever been given 2 brand new bicycles. I must be the only girl in the world who's ever been given a magic 1973 50-pence piece, said Harmony to Rexruff Monty that night, as they lay in the familiar bed, in the familiar room, and watched the moon climb through the black branches of the apple trees. And its power isn't done with yet. What's more, everyone's being so nice to me, even simple Sissy, that I'm really beginning to believe they might not object if I had a puppy. As soon as she was home, she had transferred the coin from the pig's stomach to her pocket once more, and now she reached out of bed and took it out. She held the Queen's face up to the moonlight. It had looked very sad, she remembered, on the night before her accident. Now it wore a strange, secret expression, not exactly crafty, more, Harmony searched her mind for the right word, more knowing. That was it, knowing. I wonder, said Harmony to the Queen, if you do know already what my 7th wish is going to be. I shouldn't be surprised. Anyway, if you don't, tomorrow you'll find out. And she put the coin away, settled Rexruff Monty, and went to sleep. When she woke next morning, a misty autumn morning with a chill in the air, she could not at first remember where she was, and for an instant looked about for all the little animals in the children's ward. That led, of course, to the suddenly realising face, quickly followed by the ridiculously happy. She sat up in bed and looked out of the window. Down the road she could see the kangaroo bounding along from house to house. Will he stop at ours, she thought. Not that it matters whether he does or not, because I'm home and I'm feeling miles better, and I'm going to use my 7th wish today and become the proud owner of a beautiful, sleek, shiny black Labrador puppy. So who cares whether the old kangaroo has anything in his pouch for us? It's not important. But he did have something, and it was. When Harmony came down to breakfast, carefully, using only one stick now, she could see immediately that something, was terribly wrong. The sea lion sat alone at the table. It was Saturday, so he did not have to go and balance anything. Holding a letter. His droopy moustache seemed to have drooped even lower, and his eyes looked very sad. "What is it?" said Harmony. "It's about Ginger," said the sea lion, passing a flipper over his bald crown. "About Uncle Ginger?" said Harmony in a small voice. "Why about him? Why couldn't he write himself?" "He's ill." "Very ill?" "Very, very ill." Over the past weeks, Harmony's view of her family had changed. Maybe it was something to do with the accident, or perhaps the Queen's nose had had a part in it. Maybe she was simply growing up. But she had only just realised that her father, for example, was not, as she had always thought, a person without much in the way of feelings, but someone who found it difficult to show them. She knew now what he felt for her. She could see plainly what he felt for his brother, very different kinds of people though they were. She put an arm round his shoulder. "Daddy? Is Uncle Ginger going to die?" For a couple of minutes, Mr. Parker did not reply. With one hand he drummed on the typewritten letter in front of him. With the other, he held Harmony's. "This letter," he said at last, "is from the doctor who's treating him in a hospital in Bengal. Uncle Ginger has a horrible thing called black water fever. It doesn't sound from this that there's going to be much hope for him." "How shall we know if—" "They'll let us know by telegraph, they say." "Oh, kangaroo," thought Harmony, "how stupidly happy I was when I watched you this morning, not caring whether you came to our house. And now, isn't there even the smallest chance that he'll get better, Daddy?" The sea lion shook his head slowly. He picked up the letter and read from it. "I think it's only right to tell you that, in my opinion, your brother may not have many days to live. His remarkable physical condition has kept him going thus far, but it is only fair to say that nothing short of a miracle can save him now." He rose from the table and went heavily out of the room to tell the others. Harmony's heart was thumping like a mad thing. Nothing short of a miracle. She snatched up the envelope and peered at the postmark. A week ago. If she could only be in time. She put her hand in her pocket.